Anybody work at like Jimmy John's or Subway or something? Yeah. What's that? Jimmy John's. We can use this to illustrate surplus value. So you could do this analysis of any job. What do you get paid at Jimmy John's? $8.25 an hour. And at your busiest time of the day, how many sandwiches do you make? 11 to 4 is how much? Hundreds. Couple hundred. And typically the order is like 8. What's that? 7 to 10. 200 sandwiches, $10. That's $2,000, right? And you're paid $8. Let's give you a raise to 10. That'll make it easier, right? You're not paid 10. You're paid 8 1/4 for a reason, right? But let's say 10. So $2,000 in sandwiches and sales. And how many people are working there during that time? How many workers are there? 5. So $50 each hour. So $250 in labor costs for that period of time. Jimmy, Mr. John, you probably call him Mr. John. He receives $2,000 in sales, pays out every week or for that portion of the week. What does he do with the rest of that money? So he's got $1,750, $1,750, $50. He uses it, some of it, to buy more goods. He's got to buy bread, dough, and salami, stuff like that, cheese, lettuce. He pays himself, right? Pays for advertising, very clever signs that say free smells. Okay, so you've got all this stuff, but the thing that Marx was trying to point out was surplus value. He didn't know anything about Jimmy John's. It didn't exist then. But that $1,750, some of that's going to go paying taxes, paying for electricity, paying for supplies, even before you expand, do all this expansion stuff. You still have to pay for the furniture, and somebody's going to clean up at the end of the day. Insurance, you got all this overhead. And I don't know what that overhead is, but I presume it's less than, those two things, the overhead plus the labor costs, will be less than he takes in. That's, you know how I know that? What's that? They're still in business, correct. If they weren't in business any longer, then you could say, well, there's probably something going on there. You can't stay in business if you are spending more than you take in. That's how it works. You know that, right? So we know that there's some degree of surplus left over at the end of the day from that 4-hour period. The point that Marx was trying to make was that under capitalism, that surplus is appropriated or controlled by whom? The owner. Who produced the surplus? The worker. What the hell? What gives? Why isn't that money given back then? After we pay overhead, Jimmy, Mr. John takes some of it, maybe even more than $8.25 an hour. He takes his cut. Why doesn't it go back to the workers? That was his point, that this appropriation, that there is no way to produce profits or surplus in a capitalist economy, or any economy for that matter, without labor, without workers. Workers are the engine of profit. That at the end of the day, it's the work, it's the labor. Like that, those sandwiches would not be sold without the people doing it. We can quibble over like how many, what percentage he should get. But in our system and our mentality is that, well, if you're the owner, you're taking on all these risks, opening up a Mr. John's place, Jimmy John's place. Therefore, you as the investor take the risks, therefore get all of the reward. And what does the worker get? $8.25, which is the minimum wage. And if we didn't have minimum wage, it would go down to whatever amount we could get you through the door. The workers are systematically and fundamentally, routinely exploited. No matter where you work in a capitalist economy, you are exploited. You will always, 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 you can write this in your notes, always produce more value than you paid for. You will always be of greater value to the company than you are being compensated for. Can't work any other way. Workers have to be paid less than they produce.